All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome on in. I'm Chris Persianen, NBA reporter for Clutch Points. Welcome. Tuesday, June 3rd, just after 7 p.m. Eastern, if you're listening after the fact. But if you're here live, welcome on in. Great to have you. Yeah, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau. That's the topic of today, for sure. Uh, we'll be getting into why. We'll be getting into what they have up their sleeve, what's planned. You can't make a move like this without having some idea of what you'd like to do after. We'll talk about what that might be for them. Um, yeah. Oh, I should say, if you're watching on Twitter, did you know you can watch on YouTube? If you're watching on YouTube, did you know you can watch on Twitter? I think you can leave comments at either one, and it's all the same. So same difference there. I Ugh, I've got these blinds are killing me. Anyway, whatever. We'll just get into it. Yeah, Knicks 5 years with Tom Thibodeau. I think to start, you've got to say like he did so much. He did so much. You may think he did a lot of bad. You may think he did a lot of good. You may think it's a mix. Um, I I do think that I do think that, there's something to he did things. He changed how he helped change. He had an indelible role in changing how this team is perceived and discussed. Um, you know, I do think that there is just immense value to Tom Thibodeau's ability to go somewhere and establish a culture, set the tone, is the proper coach speak there. Um, he gets this rep of like not being a developer, not being a rebuilding coach. Well, I just watched Tom Thibodeau coach a team through a rebuild and complete turnaround without tanking a single time. And people kind of like to have it both ways in these discussions. They spend all season talking about how Thibodeau's an idiot for the minutes things and whatever. And then as soon as the Knicks fire him, it's like, oh, well, why do they think they can do better? It's the Knicks. You kind of got to pick one, right? And I feel a little bit like there is something to looking at the young talent the Knicks had on their roster when Thibodeau was hired, which was RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox. Who am I forgetting? Frank Ntilikina. So RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, Frank Ntilikina, Kevin Knox was pretty much like the established young talent on the Knicks roster when Tom Thibodeau was hired. They drafted and developed Quentin Grimes, who NBA Twitter loves now. They drafted and developed Emmanuel Quickley, who's getting paid $25 million a year to be a starter. They developed RJ Barrett to the point where he and Quickley landed them an all defensive player in OG Anunoby. And I also think it's worth saying, like, Knick fans hate Thibodeau's utilization or lack thereof of Obi Toppin, but if you really like Obi Toppin on the Pacers now, how can you ignore the fact that the most formative years of his NBA career were spent developing under Tom Thibodeau? I also think there's something to like people just refusing to credit Thibodeau for things like the career year that Dante DiVincenzo just had. To me, it's a little bit like, okay, what can we credit Thibodeau for then? Like what did he actually do that a robot couldn't have done? Because it does feel a little bit like, Knick fans are funny. They'll say things like, the Celtics play like chat GPT basketball, and different things like that. But then they don't like when the Knicks do the opposite. So I don't get what people want, So it's interesting, right? I think it's funny. And I think it's worth talking about the extent to which the media members that criticized Tom Thibodeau all season are now criticizing the Knicks for having fired him. Got to pick one. The people that criticize the Knicks for not being able to draft and develop players and criticize Tom Thibodeau for not being able to draft and develop players now nostalgize and lament the days when the Knicks had those young players that Tom Thibodeau was growing and developing. So, I think that's all really interesting. I think, a lot of things might come out in the media where like people are trying to make it clear why they fired Thibodeau or whatever. I mean, I think they fired Thibodeau because they didn't feel like he was making the most of his opportunity as the head coach of the team. Like, you don't fire someone unless you really like someone's like really causing trouble in your organization and everyone hates them and this and that. You don't just fire a coach because you're like, oh, well, I just got to switch things up. Teams will usually change the roster. Um, and I mean serious teams, of course. Like you can look at a team like Sacramento that just rotates coaches and expect something to change. That's different, right? I just think the Knicks didn't feel like their head coach was the guy to get the most out of this team going forward. And maybe that's because they want a different approach and they want to change things. Maybe it's because they feel like they had the right approach, but Thibodeau wasn't making the most of it. I can tell you what I reported earlier, which is that the front office suggested changing the starting lineup during the series against the Boston Celtics. The front office suggested inserting Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup in place of Josh Hart. And if you watched the games or even just read the box scores after, you know that did not happen. I get the sense from how the New York Rangers are run, and I think it's like well overall, by the way, but I get the sense that, whoever's in charge of the Rangers, whether it's from a coaching or a roster perspective, they pretty much get leeway to do what they want. And sometimes the owner will ask for something. And if they're unwilling to either go along with it or just teach him why he's wrong to want that thing, then all of a sudden that leeway kind of starts to go away. Because it's like, I let you guys do whatever you want. I ask you for one little thing. You don't even give me the time of day on it. Like, come on, what are we doing here? So I want to say, the Knicks don't. I want to say Leon Rose has all the leeway in the world to run the Knicks. I think the basketball media landscape hasn't even done 1/100th of the crediting of James Dolan for giving Leon Rose the leeway to turn this team around that he has, that the media did for years of explaining to fans that James Dolan is the reason their team sucks. What's that saying? The apology needs to be as loud as the disrespect was. I think people talk more today about how Dolan nixed the Kyle Lowry trade than they talk about the extent to which he's allowed Leon Rose to completely flip this franchise on its head in 5 years. This is the first coaching change of the Rose tenure when you factor in that not many general managers come in and keep a coach that was an interim. Funnily enough, Scott Perry literally just did exactly that. But I do think that there's a different set of circumstances there in general with all that. The Kings are a whole other mess we don't need to get into. But they could get their own live stream too, But I get the sense that the Knicks, once they made that suggestion, once they suggested to Tom Thibodeau that he should start Mitchell Robinson, it should say a lot to you that it didn't happen and that they won the series and they didn't fire Thibodeau after the series and tell Harrington or Mark Bryant or Mo Cheeks to coach the team for the conference final. Like the coach was allowed to coach the team the way he wanted to. I think that's great. I think coaches, especially if they know they might be on their way out, would like to go down swinging their way, But I do think there's something to the front office asked him to make a change to the starting lineup. He didn't want to do it, so he didn't do it. And that's That's completely fine. But then in the next series, he wound up making that change down 2 games to none. So then at that point, it feels a little bit like, well, what would have happened if he had made it in the Boston series? Would that have been the reps our guys needed to figure out the rotation? Would we not have been throwing out the lineups with Wright and Shamet out there just in hopes that the team has found something for itself? I think the equation is a bit different if that change had been made earlier. And it's not so much, oh, Thibodeau messed up one thing, so he needs to go. I think it's more like they stuck with him when I think it was Yaron Weitzman wrote an amazing piece that was like Tom Thibodeau was telling people he knew he was going to be fired. He coached the team for several more years after that. Leon Rose stuck with him to the point where lots of media members that have covered the team were saying things like, he's never going to fire Thibodeau. That's his guy. He would have fired him already. I think there's something to being able to understand that Leon Rose, the extent to which he navigates relationships in a world, not just an NBA world, but in a world that's increasingly, anyone out there looking for a job knows that the job market today and the world today is much more about relationships than a lot of other things. I think that there's something to Leon Rose's amount of relationships, how adept he is at navigating the sporting landscape. Like this guy, I really believe the Knicks have the best front office in the NBA, because they never tanked. They just turned around a team in the market that gets the most scrutiny of any without tanking once. They made signings that they thought would help the team. They got absolutely clowned because there were 6 power forwards involved. They nailed the draft after draft, and then they traded the players they drafted, save for the Obi Toppin trade, which they only got back 2 second-round picks because they were looking to quickly clear up the salary cap space needed to sign Dante DiVincenzo. I think that other than that, they got really good value out of everyone they drafted and developed. You could say the Quentin Grimes trade is another blemish on their record, but that's how they got the salary in Bogdanovic. Like that's how they rolled Fournier into Bogdanovic. Bogdanovic and Burks were both very important parts of that playoff run. Burks ended up being one of the 5 best players on the team by the second round because everyone was dropping like flies. And then they go and they turn that salary into Mikal Bridges. So, like, to me, you can't look at this front office's mistakes without looking at how quickly they pivoted from them. And whether or not they made a mistake by firing Tom Thibodeau, which the jury, no one should know an answer to that just yet. If you view this as a mistake or not, the Knicks have shown over time that every time they make a mistake, they fix it quick. That Evan Fournier signing, the Kemba Walker signing, Burks, Noel signings. They extended Randall when people thought they shouldn't, ended up being the right move. They extended Barrett, ended up turning him into Anunoby along with someone else they drafted 25th overall. This is just an excellent front office that knows exactly what they're doing. And so if I were a Knicks fan, I would be confident in them to make the right decision. And even if they did make the wrong decision in firing Tom Thibodeau, I think I would be confident that they'll make the right decision when they hire his replacement. They have given Knicks fans that precedent, excuse me, and that I think they've earned that trust over the years. So yeah, when it comes to discussing storylines so far, 15 minutes in, I just want to welcome everyone in. If you joined late, hi, I'm Chris Persianen, NBA reporter. This is all things NBA from A to Z live. This is my show with my 2 really, really good co-hosts. We do a show with ballislife.com. We do episodes and live shows You can watch or listen to our podcast on Spotify or YouTube. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to it everywhere else. I want you to know, if you're watching on Twitter, you can watch on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch on Twitter. So I know people like to be able to, do other things on their phones and things like that. So you can throw me on the computer. I'll be background noise. I'm just honored to be on the screen. Yeah. But anyway, welcome in. Appreciate everyone. Make sure to leave your comments, questions, concerns, complaints, what you had for lunch today. I don't care. Leave it in the comments. I'll get to it, because this is a conversation, right? If I wanted to talk one way, I would record the episode and then just post it and be like, hey, y'all can listen to this or not. We're here live so that I can actually interact with you guys and make sure I'm talking about things you care about. So I figured 15 minutes into the show would be a good time to remind you guys to leave comments, leave questions. If you have complaints or concerns, email those to either of my co-hosts. Send those to either of my co-hosts, just to keep things objective, and other than that, let's get back to it, man. So I figure I should address the title of the show, which is why the Knicks fire Tom Thibodeau and what's next. We'll recap what we've talked about so far, which is, and in no order here, media members are hilarious nationally for criticizing Thibodeau all season and acting like they know every quick fix for the Knicks rotations and roster. And then as soon as the Knicks move on from Thibodeau, being like, well, the Knicks have sucked for 30 years, so why do they think they're not going to suck now? Like, they should have kept him. What? The other thing we talked about was the extent to which the front office values their singular pursuit of an NBA championship over the relationships and the navigation of those relationships that ultimately landed them their jobs as the front office of the New York Knicks and allowed them to hire people like Walt Perrin, Alex Klein, Brock Aller, Tom Thibodeau, Frank Zanin, all these people that just dominate the margins at their specific professions. The Knicks really, really did a great job of filling out their staff as soon as this front office got in here. And they're showing now that, even if you are a lifer, even if you're a Leon Rose lifer, he needs to do what's best for him. He won't be in a position to make people lifers if he's not in his position, right? So it's clear that Tom Thibodeau, whose extension hadn't even kicked in yet, was a Rose lifer. This is someone who Rose stuck by. And we talked about how Rose stuck by him through the rumors of William Wesley and other members of the front office wanting him fired over the years, through the rumors that Thibodeau himself was telling personal connections and close friends that he'd be fired. And another thing we talked about is I had heard during the winter time that Thibodeau had told some people that he didn't believe he'd be back if the team did not make the conference finals. The team did make the conference finals. So how did he end up getting fired? Right? Seems a little unfair. Here's what I think happened. I had heard during the Boston Celtics series that the front office had kindly, gently, like not forcibly, a nudge, right? Hey, have you thought about, hey, just reminding you, so it wasn't like some organizational command that Thibodeau like flipped the bird to, and that was my ring finger, by the way. That was not. Anyway, flipped the bird to and defied. That just to me was a suggestion from a front office that's one of the more analytically invested in the NBA. I think it's worth noting, like, there are lots of proofs, coming out and about recently that the Knicks are super into shot tracking data. I interviewed the CEO of the shot tracking data company that works with 28 out of 30 NBA teams. This image should show you that the Knicks are one of those teams. If you're just listening, rewind 10 seconds, check this out. This is clearly, I think, OG Anunoby celebrating a great shooting performance in practice or something like that. Like, the Knicks are super analytically invested. And they went ahead and made a suggestion. Tom Thibodeau did not do it. Tom Thibodeau in Chicago, Minnesota, or New York City had never made a starting lineup change during a playoff series that his team was tied in or that his team was winning. So Tom Thibodeau has to be losing a playoff series. Historically, this is the precedent he's set in his career. He has to be losing a playoff series to make a change to his starting lineup, unless that change is necessitated by injury or was the undoing of a change that was necessitated by injury. Does that make sense? So yeah, Tibbs didn't make the change. They beat the Celtics, but then against the Indiana Pacers, it felt a little bit like game 97 of the season was not the time to start testing out other starting lineups. The New York Knicks succeeded this season in spite of their starting lineup. It was statistically, objectively, their worst performing. Well, there goes one of the blinds. Oh, my parents are going to kill me. The Knicks played that lineup the most this season of any lineup. God damn it. I'm sorry. Of any lineup. You gotta just laugh, man. God. And it was their worst lineup. So basically, like, I can't really say that it was magically going to start being good in game number 97. And that's what they needed. They necessitated it by losing the first two games at home. So yeah, that's why I think the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau. I think they fired Tom Thibodeau because they felt like over time they needed to have a head coach in place that they could trust to be flexible, and that they could trust to listen to them. Like, from Tom Thibodeau's perspective, because I do think people are a little like brutally harsh to Tom Thibodeau. To his credit and from his perspective, if you are the head coach of a basketball team and you have been hired to coach a team and make the decisions for that team on the court, you want to be able to have the leeway to do things your way, right? I think there is something to the modern MLB manager being a lawyer, right? I think this is true of both Boone and Mendoza. I think this is true of managers across MLB. It is a fact that you need to be a good coach to be a manager in MLB. But I think it's also a fact that part of the prerequisite skill set at this point is being able to defend decisions to the media and deflect credit for them when they go well and take blame for them when they don't go well. And oftentimes in the modern sports landscape, those decisions come from the analytics department, right? That lineup card gets handed to a manager sometimes and they go, Jesus, really? And they've got to go defend it like they came up with it, right? But that's part of the job. You know, coaching now, especially with the prevalence of media, the extent to which we consume media, excuse me, sorry, and, you know, how much faster the dissemination of media has gotten, it's pretty important now to be able to address things as they're happening. For example, I would think if a New York Knicks player were ever, you know, like traded or anything, you're going to have how many thousands of podcasts coming out in that hour about it, right? So it's the same thing with a coaching move. I get it's a big deal. But I do think that the Knicks don't make this move impulsively. I do think that this is something that I do. Oh, interesting text I just got. That is not a candidate. So yeah, we will talk about that later. Meaning you guys, you and I, the stream and I will talk about that later. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I just got some really secret information. Anyway, yeah, I think that's like the lamest thing ever you could do is be like, hey, I know something, but I'm not going to say it. I'm a superhero. I hate those people. So we won't do that. I will say I 100% will reveal it. We will talk about it 100%. But I would like to start that part of the conversation with addressing the direction the Knicks seem to be going in general. I don't think they're looking for a lawyer. I don't think they're looking for someone who is just going to do what the front office wants blindly and just defend it or take credit for it or whatever. But I think there's something to the extent to which Tom Thibodeau is not flexible with that regard. I do think there's something to that being really admirable about Tom Thibodeau. Like, again, I would rather hire someone who figures that they really care about how things are done. They have their beliefs and then they operate based off of them. They're willing to learn, but they have their principles. Give me that any day over somebody who's always asking me, well, what do you want? You know, like, you ever have that friend you ask where you want to go get lunch, and they're like, nah, whatever you want, man, whatever you want. And it's a little bit just like, well, okay, why would I ask you if I wasn't interested in what you thought? Like, I didn't want a mirror. I didn't want a yes man. So I do think it's cool that Tom Thibodeau is someone who very much like knows how to fight for what he believes in. I just also think that the Knicks and Shams Charania said this earlier today when he spoke about flexibility being part of what they wanted. I do think there's something to the New York Knicks just wanting a more flexible head coach, somebody who they could trust to be quicker on their feet to make changes, somebody who would rather be early and wrong than late and right. You know, um, like I was saying earlier, and this is something we talked about earlier that I forgot to recap in our recap about 10 minutes ago. So I guess I'll recap this part now. The Knicks, whether they make the right moves or not, have consistently shown in the 5 years that Leon Rose has served as the president of basketball operations that they know how to bounce back from those mistakes. They signed Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks to deals richer than maybe what the rest of the league would have offered those players, but then they turned them into Jalen goddamn Brunson. Hello? Um, they signed Evan Fournier to a 4-year deal. That you follow those dominoes down the trail, it's Mikal Bridges. And the reason that was possible was because of their good drafting, right? They inherit RJ Barrett. They choose to extend him. They inherit Julius Randle. They choose to extend him. Yeah, they did inherit Randle. They choose to extend these guys, even though they weren't their guys. A lot of NFL GMs just move on from a quarterback because it's not their guy. The Knicks said, we think it's best to stick with these guys, even if we're not married to them long term. So we're going to stick with them. And then they moved them when they thought it made sense. I do think, and I have to credit Brandon Tierney with WFAN, and I have to credit, who else said it? Someone was tweeting like last week that the Knicks kind of have to pick Thibodeau or Towns. But Tierney said, BT said that recently. The Knicks have got to pick Tibbs or Towns. I think they just did, right? Because other than moving Towns for Giannis, I don't think there's a trade out there that makes much sense. I think they've looked into Kevin Durant. I think they looked into him at the deadline. I think they have probably thought about moving the Towns salary for Durant. I do know this. From my perspective, as a basketball reporter, a basketball analyst, I'm only 23 years old. I'm not purporting to be smart, right? But I've been covering the NBA, potting about the NBA. I've been doing this for 5.5 years now. From my experience covering the NBA in that very short, I know it's not much, in a short amount of time, I feel like it's better for teams to be early than late. And I feel like overall, it's good for coaches to have their convictions. I feel like it's good for teams to want to do better than they've done. Like, I don't think there's anything abnormal here about this process. I don't think there's anything about this process that is strange. Like this is just a move to me. And the Knicks have earned this leeway. And yeah. Now, when it comes to hiring a replacement, what do the Knicks want? What are they looking for? Sorry, I gotta keep myself alive to some extent. I will say this. I think there's something to, and this is almost like tangential. This is almost just like a side note. I think there's something to Mike Woodson, Kenny Payne, Johnny Bryant, a lot of the assistants that the front office kind of forced on Tom Thibodeau when he started as the Knicks coach. Um, they have found their way they have found other positions over the years, raises, promotions, upgrades. Um, and over the years, we have seen the Knicks slowly attempt fewer three-pointers to like a minute extent, despite acquiring talent like Karl Anthony Towns, which you would think would help that go up. And we've also seen this season more complaints from players themselves about communication issues than ever before. So, like what's that saying? It's like if everyone in a room agrees, no one in the room is thinking. I think there's something to forcing different perspectives. And just as a result of circumstance, the Knicks got brain drained over the years and they continued to replace these coaches. And Johnny Bryant, known for relationships with players. Kenny Payne, known for relationships with players. Mike Woodson was almost like a unction type hire, but he's a great coach and known for his connections and relationships with players, as well as his ability to coach an offense to shape up a defense. Him and Payne were both natural fits to be college coaches. Didn't really work out for either one of them, but such is life. I think there's something to the Knicks having lost all these assistants and then over time really only replacing them with Rick Brunson, Mo Cheeks, Mark Bryant. Like it feels like they've replaced any of the potential non-Tibbs lifer assistants with more Tibbs lifer assistants. And I'm not saying that was some like power move from Thibodeau. Like I think as the Knicks continued to succeed, it was obvious that their assistants were going to be poached the same way you're seeing two of Cleveland's top assistants be the two finalists for the Phoenix Suns coaching job. That's how that works, right? But I think the Knicks continuing to replace those coaches with older coaches or like longtime friends of Thibodeau, it's not that that's inherently a problem. It's that you just also need to add a bunch of younger people. And I don't know that the Knicks were doing that at a rate that fostered enough flexibility or enough disagreement or enough whatever. These are just kind of the tea leaves I'm trying to read from over the years. This isn't like a quote that someone's told me. Like, I've just noticed like a lot of the guys, Randall, Quickly, Barrett, Burks, a lot of guys warmed up with Johnny Bryant before games. And now those guys are either not on the team or are warming up with a different coach. But like, it's just, I think I understand how the Knicks, instead of doing what my suggestion was, which my suggestion was keeping Tom Thibodeau. Not that my suggestion matters anything, right? But like my suggestion was keeping Tom Thibodeau and hiring Terry Stotts as an offensive coordinator. He went to the 2011 Mavericks, instituted more of a motion offense, and well, they won a championship. I'm not going to say they won a championship because of Stotts, but them winning a championship like immediately after doing that is kind of telling to me, right? Like we've had a lot of first-time head coaches win championships and be really successful recently. It's not because of beginner's luck. It's because they have a new perspective and fresh eyes and they're younger. And it's great that they are able to come into the job and succeed. But, yeah. Anyway, all in all, Tom Thibodeau did an A job over his 5 years as the coach of the Knicks. He survived a near firing because Leon Rose trusted his guy. Leon Rose was right to trust his guy. Thibodeau coached the team for years after that, and the team saw heights and success that they hadn't before hiring Thibodeau. That said, The Knicks being better recently than they were in the years before that is not a reason for them to just keep the exact same coach that they have that whole time, right? Like when the Knicks made the playoffs in 2021, and I think it really is this simple. When the Knicks made the playoffs in 2021, was the consensus after the season that they absolutely must retain Elfrid Payton and Reggie Bullock because they didn't make the playoffs before those guys, so they weren't going to make them after those guys? Did you have national TV analysts like sassily and vaguely tweeting the grass isn't always greener when that season ended and the Knicks moved on from those two players? Hell no. Because people from their couches love to sit and blame players and then they have trouble blaming coaches, or people love to blame coaches and they have trouble blaming players. Knicks Film School, I'm proud to be a part of Knicks Film School. Knicks Film School always talks about blame pie, Everyone's got to get a slice. The size of the slice is TBD, but we're all sitting down and having some, damn it. So I do think there's something to that. Okay, all that said, what direction are the Knicks going to go in? Let's get to talking about that. We'll talk about your comments first. I don't want to ignore you guys. Okay, that's not a comment. Jason, I view this firing as a vote of confidence in this roster. I don't expect big changes. Yeah, it does feel a little bit like the Knicks, if they really felt like they didn't give Thibodeau a roster with which he could have succeeded, they would have brought him back. That seems to be what they did the last several years, right? Like they were like, okay, everyone's really mad at you for how you handled Julius Randle, but we gave you a team where Julius Randle was the number one option, and the second best player against the Atlanta Hawks was Derrick Rose, and the third best player against the Atlanta Hawks in 2021 was unironically Taj freaking Gibson. That's awesome, by the way, but also a problem for a team that had a player they took number 3 overall. Right? So that's not great. So they brought him back. The next year, Randall's still the best player, so they brought him back. Next year, Brunson, the best player. Randall, no longer the best player. They made the playoffs. Team was a little injured. Didn't matter. They still won a series, so they brought him back. The next year, everyone got injured, but they made it a game further. They went to game 7 in the second round, and because everyone got injured, they brought Thibodeau back because he deserved another shot at it. This year, they brought Thibodeau back. He brought them further than he had before, and they felt like Thibodeau was this team's version of Reggie Bullock, a veteran who knows how to do the job, who's been in business doing that job for a decade plus because they're great at it, and someone who, in this current moment, the team succeeded potentially more in spite of than because of. I do think it's annoying that people are seemingly incapable of talking about Tom Thibodeau or NBA superstars or coaches in general with any sort of nuance. It feels like they either have to be carrying the team and they need help, or they're the worst ever and they're mid, but somehow mid means terrible now and they're bad at what they do. I think Tom Thibodeau was a great coach who the Knicks felt, now that they advanced to one of the 4 teams left in the entire playoff landscape, they felt the team was winning in spite of, they decided to move on. And they felt like they wanted to move on potentially too early than too late, right? How do you think fans would feel if Jalen Brunson were 31, Karl Anthony Towns were 30 or 32 or whatever their age difference is, Josh Hart's 33, 34, and Mikal Bridges is like 32, 33, however old he is. I really don't know. I'm sorry. And like they are sitting there at the end of these guys' deals and primes, like, well, we probably should have moved on from Thibodeau. Like that would stink, right? So they're taking a shot at it now. And like I've said, consistently, I feel like the Knicks have shown that whether what they do is right or wrong, they bounce back. We've got a comment on Twitter itself on the timeline. Ultrarad Alex says, not going to look it up. Didn't Hart start game 1 of the Miami series over Grimes? Yeah, but Grimes wasn't available that game. It's either like he dressed and then said he couldn't go, or he played at the start and then said he couldn't go. Like it was a medical. There was injury behind that. Like it was a medical thing. Sorry, I really appreciate you guys letting me steal these water sips. I got to get like 2 co-hosts that are adults and can speak. Also, oh wait, they didn't show up. Zach and Albert, I'm watching you two. You guys better be having a loving ass dinner with your families right now. Not doing this damn show with me. You better be having a great time with the wife and kids, you assholes. Making me talk about the biggest thing of the week, biggest news of the week by myself. You want something done right, you got to do it yourself. I love those guys. It's all a bit. I'm sorry. I should make that clear. Let's get back to your comments. Debo. Oh, Debo, what's up, man? My guy. How we doing? For all the criticism around the rotations, deuce and quickly usage and minutes, Tibbs did a lot to turn this franchise around. Yeah, absolutely. I also think like there's something to the deuce, the IQ usage, the fact that like there was something every year that was kind of almost maddening with the rotation. Peyton, like Hart this year, like it feels like every year there's like at least one thing that the team kind of ignores the data on. But ultimately, again, I would rather a coach that has belief in something than one that just literally does whatever the computer tells him to. Because, and I hate to minimize it to the computer. We're talking about like months of sample size and data, but you know what I mean? Like if you're getting married and you put someone in charge of making the invitations because you really want them to be great, and this friend of yours has like great artistic ability, and they asked ChatGPT how to do it and just did exactly what it said. Did they theoretically do like the best, the most efficient? What, like maybe, but that's not why you chose them. You chose them to be a damn human. So yeah, I think there is something to like having a coach that actually has his convictions. Salute, Fritz. How we doing, man? How we doing? Hope you're all good. Nemo, what have you done of your co-hosts, man? Making it sound like I kidnapped them. Yeah, no, Zach's in that closet. Albert, that one. They just couldn't make it tonight, but we had to go live. We had to talk about this. Zach, Lela. First, also, let me just say thank you to everyone leaving comments. Thanks to everyone watching. There's somehow 1,100 people watching right now, which makes me like, you know. So, yeah, appreciate that. I'll try and get over myself. Zach says, I think this was the first season where I found myself really wanting the Knicks to make a change. But after every year Thibodeau's been here, there have been fans that wanted him gone. I mean, I think like, can I just say like, I think it's okay to say like those fans were accidentally right at the time. Like we don't have to pretend like someone who wanted Thibodeau fired in 2021 was right because he got fired in 2025. We are in a whole ass like other presidential term. Like that's just not, you know, I do think that fans were accidentally right about the minutes thing from the perspective of there were no injuries due to the minutes, and the notion that players were going to drop dead because they played a lot was so insane. And I think it was given too much credence. Like fans would tell me like, you know, is it that the beat thinks like they're better than fans, and because they don't agree with the minutes things, they just don't need to ask about it, even though the fans are interested in it. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like the beat's job to determine what's worth asking about or not. And they're professional basketball watchers, and they don't think this minutes thing is a problem either. So maybe it's just not, you know. All that said, Knicks were throwing lineups at the wall in games number 99 and 100 of the season that they had never played before. I mean, they're closing games with lineups that you would have only seen if you had auto subs on in NBA 2K25 before those games. So I understand wanting larger sample sizes of different lineups in the regular season, so that they weren't just guessing in the playoffs. But that established, or with that established, I think it's unfair to say that the injuries or anything was part of that. So like, yeah, I do think, you know, fans have always wanted him gone. They weren't always right to. But now he is gone. So tho- those people can be happy. Andrew Basta. If we are looking to fully utilize the Knicks roster, which up and coming coaches may be the best options for the Knicks, other than the obvious Johnny Bryant? Um, that's a good question. Up and coming coaches. Is there? I'm trying to think of the one guy who's getting some buzz. Um, is it Chris Quinn? Is Quinn the Heat assistant? Yeah, Chris Quinn with the Miami Heat would intrigue me. I don't know much about him. Jordan Ott, I think, seems like he's going to go to Phoenix. So we'll see about that. The obvious Johnny Bryant. I reported this earlier. Like, yes, I've heard Bryant is supposed to be under consideration. I think Phoenix starting their coaching search and him advancing to being a finalist in that search before the Knicks started their coaching search kind of does mean that, like, I think the Knicks may have to wait for that to play out, but also, like, Bryant isn't legally required to take a job he doesn't want to take. So I would assume that'll get itself figured out. Like, I wouldn't be sitting at home worried about, like, oh, did the Knicks not fire Thibodeau soon enough? That's not anything. Yeah. Brian. Hey, KP, what's going on, Brian? Thanks so much for doing this live show. Thanks for being here. The hell? I'd be talking to my wall if you guys weren't here. A great nugget of reporting earlier about the suggested lineup change during the Celtics series. I've got one question I'll ask in the next comment. Very good. Let me get that next comment up on the Jumbotron for you. Is there any chance or possibility that Thibodeau stays with the Knicks organization in a front office role, or is he gone from the Knicks entirely? I would think Tom Thibodeau owes it to himself to go out there and look for another coaching gig. I would really think he owes it to himself to go out there and look for a coaching gig. If he wants to be on a sideline more than he wants to be in a front office or be in New York, he should go out and join another coaching staff. If I'm the Houston Rockets, for example, I'm offering him a commensurate salary with the highest paid assistant in the league to be an assistant to Ime Udoka and serve in a defensive coordinator role. Especially if you're Houston and you're getting ready to consolidate, you're thinking now all of a sudden, instead of being 11, 12 guys deep, you're going to be 7 or 8, and you've got to get the most out of those 8th, 9th, and 10th guys defensively. I would want Thomas Thibodeau on my coaching staff. If I were the Utah Jazz, I would want him on my coaching staff with Will Hardy. If I were the Charlotte Hornets, I'd want him on my coaching staff with Charles Lee. I understand with these younger coaches that it's a little bit harder to make them feel like they're replacements in the house. It's why I erred away from suggesting Mike Brown as an offensive coordinator for Tom Thibodeau. Again, said this earlier in the show. My suggestion was for the Knicks to keep Tom Thibodeau and bring in Terry Stotts or Mike Brown as an offensive coordinator. But Mike Brown, it felt a little bit like you're shoving Thibodeau's replacement in his face. Feels a little bit like signing Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal and then drafting Michael oh, wait. Damn, someone really did that. Whatever. It feels a little bit like, how did the Falcons end up catching a stray? And I'm just not a good guy. I'm a bad person. How did the Falcons end up catching a stray in all this? I'm a bad dude. I would think Tom Thibodeau should go out and look to join another coaching staff. If no one wants him, that would be weird to me. It would be cool if he joined the Knicks in an advisory capacity, front office role, wants to evaluate talent. Yeah, I think he's good at evaluating talent. This is the guy who wanted Deuce McBride and Quentin Grimes drafted to his team. Also, I'm pretty sure I've reported this before, but if I haven't, I guess it's like a fun tidbit to throw out now. Tom Thibodeau like really wanted Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara in that NBA draft. You can go back and see that Darren Erman was one of the NBA assistant coaches who was chosen to be the coach of the scrimmage teams at the NBA draft combine. And Jalen Williams was on Erman's team. And I guess from whatever Erman, just told Thibodeau about his experience working with him and whatever else, like I always heard Tom Thibodeau and his staff like wanted Jalen Williams on the team, and I guess that is a one of the things that made Thibodeau always like call the front office people hinky. Um, so yeah, but no, like Tom Thibodeau, I think gets a lot of unfair flack when it comes to young players and stuff. Then again, I was also the person who first reported that his initial plan was to DNP Emmanuel quickly for the entirety of his rookie season and have him be in Westchester. If you remember the Knicks like unceremoniously dumping Austin Rivers in the middle of that season, it was because they weren't expecting quickly to be in the rotation. They had an extra guard for a reason. Um, so they did the right thing, sent him somewhere he was going to play. Who remembers the Austin Rivers? They should have had clutch player of the year back then. If they had clutch player of the month, he would have won it. Can you think about that? If there was a clutch player of the month award, Austin Rivers would have won one for the New York Knicks. I love this league. This is like the best sport in the world, dude. I can't wait to cover the W this offseason too, like this NBA offseason. Oh my God. This basketball's the best. So yeah, anyway, Brian, answer your question. Sure, I guess there's a chance or possibility, but if I were Thibodeau, I would probably not do that so soon. I'd take it. Hello? I would take a year. Alexa, turn off the lights. Hello? Okay. Um, this is the show from hell today. A co-host is still moving in the closet. Yo, be cool. Did I make that joke before? See? Yeah, I did. Damn it. I'm not helping my own case. Don't sweat the blinds. Lighting looks good. Okay, yeah. I'm not sweating. The lighting looks good because I unplugged my mic amidst all that chaos. I all right. I probably sound like no. I sound fine now. I reconnected it. Okay. Um the text I got. I forgot about that. I guess I'll address that as part of Garrett's comment. Nemo says also there seems to have been some discontentment in the locker room. You don't want things to decay out of control. I think the locker room continually saying that there were like problems with communication and people seeming to know what to do or not. Like that's the bigger thing to me. Garrett Ferrara, what coaches are the Knicks in the running for? He joined late. What's going on, Garrett? Nice to see all of y'all in the chat. Nice to see all of y'all watching. If you're watching on Twitter, you can watch on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, you can watch on Twitter. If you're watching on either one, make sure you follow the account that's doing the streaming that you're watching so that you don't miss the next one. And also like be nice, be a doll and leave like a thumbs up or a retweet or something. That'd be nice. Just or just like text it to like one friend. I don't know. I would like to get a job reporting on the NBA full time. So the more eyeballs, the better, right? I would really love to be able to do this as a career. That's the only reason I ever ask you guys to share stuff, by the way. I'm not like, oh, I need my YouTube views up. Like I'm literally just trying to get a job. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to get hired. All right. That said, let's keep it going. What coaches are the Knicks in the running for? I have heard Johnny Bryant. That's the obvious. The text I got earlier, the Knicks are intrigued by some college coaches. So that was what I was not expecting to hear. So it really looks like the Knicks are looking for someone who will do the best job. They're no longer looking for, their personal connection in Tom Thibodeau, who they know can help them turn a team around for the better. They're looking for whoever it's going to be that, sorry, looking for a phone charger. My thing's about to die. Again, stream show from hell today. If there has ever been a case made for me to have a full-time grip on reality and maybe also like a producer, this would be it. So yeah, apparently they're gonna look into some college coaches. I don't know literally anything else. So Yeah, I don't know, but that's what I'm hearing. Looks like the Knicks are going to be just they're intrigued by some different college coaches. They are also aware of the holdups in that world. I mean, I can tell you guys the Knicks are very aware of the state of college basketball nowadays and how that world has kind of changed. I'm not going to be one of the boomers that's like, those kids weren't getting paid back in my day and everyone was fine with it. It's like, well, actually, they weren't fine with it. You just didn't care. They should be getting paid. But yeah, buyouts and all that, that's probably tough. Um, so yeah, I would think this is a total shot in the dark. Um, I don't know who. I'm literally googling the answer to this. Ooh, who do you work for? Okay, so Mike Brown is not a CAA guy. I know Johnny Bryant is a CAA guy. And I know that a lot of coaches are CAA guys in general. So I wouldn't think the agency will determine what's who they'll hire. But yeah, um, yeah, I would, in my opinion, just let this Phoenix thing play out. I would see who else becomes available. Like, actually, you know what? No, I maybe not because I don't know that they're gonna be hiring anyone like um Taylor Jenkins. Like I wouldn't expect Taylor Jenkins. I definitely would not expect Mike Malone. I know CP the franchise said not to expect Mike Malone. I would second that notion. I would not expect it to be Mike Malone. Um I think fans get very aware of the good and bad that their team's coaches bring to the table as they watch them over and over again. I do think fans talk about the grass isn't always greener. Malone and Thibodeau are very similar. Like they'd get along great. I think they'd be great friends if they're not already. Um, I, they're very similar. I saw an account. I think it's Will Nets Hater, who is a Nets fan, tweet something like older coaches known for being stubborn and set in their ways, but having like a great knowledge and love for the game. They don't love to play young players. They're not really flexible. Their offense doesn't have a lot of off ball movement. A lot of it is just giving the ball to the best guy and letting them work. I was like, oh, that's the same thing. So yeah, I wouldn't think that the Knicks wouldn't fire Tom. Let's put it this way: the Knicks wouldn't fire Tom Thibodeau, go out of their way to fire Tom Thibodeau, and someone who they have had for 5 years, someone who they really respect and appreciate, and who's like a Leon Rose lifer. They wouldn't fire him if they were going to go hire someone that coaches just like him. They're clearly looking for a change in approach. Shams Charania reported today that it seems like they're looking for a coach that is more open to change and is more flexible. That to me speaks more to someone like Johnny Bryant or whatever college coaches are the ones they're looking into. If I had to completely guess, look, see, I don't want to guess and then get aggregated. I don't want to guess and get aggregated. Um, I guess, yeah, that's I don't I don't want to throw coaching names out there just trying to figure it out myself and then have people be like, Chris says. So I'll think about that on my own time and get back to y'all, see what I can find out. I think that's the responsible journalistic move there. Um, yeah. I don't know if Mike Brown would be under consideration. I really wouldn't know. I know Johnny Bryant is expected to be under consideration. I think he is under consideration. I know he's expected to be under consideration. Um, and apparently they're looking at the NCAA uh, landscape as well. Um, so yeah, let's keep going through your comments. Emily, not the choice I would have made. Interesting. I'll ask you about this. But yeah, I guess I wonder why. Uh, I get fans wanting to keep Thibodeau. I really do. Um, But I also do get the organization moving on, given everything we've talked about today. Zach says the minutes thing was always nonsense to me. My issue with Thibodeau this year was the lack of adaptability throughout the season, and overall just feeling like he wasn't getting enough out of this roster. Yeah, Zach, and the reply to this is always from like national media figures who are very sassy and rude to fans for some reason. I don't know why. If I ever get like that, please just like tell me. Like, be like, dude, you're turning into what you hated when you were a kid. Um, that would suck. Anyway, the notion is like, oh, well, the Knicks, you feel like he wasn't getting enough out of this roster. Well, what did they do before he got there? And it's like, if I was starving for 20 years and then for 5 years I ate nothing but cardboard, am I a bad guy for wanting to find like maybe like some broth to soak the cardboard in? Like make it a little easier to eat? Like, are you a bad person? Are you a bad fan for wanting your team to do better than it's doing now? Are you a bad fan for wanting your team to do the best that it can? If your kid comes home and they got third place in a cross country race, are you telling them you're proud of them? Or are you telling them, like, well, you got first place last time? What the hell, little Timmy? Do better. Do better. No, you're proud of them. And Knicks fans should be proud that Tom Thibodeau helped the team reach those heights. But if your kid gets third place and is crying to you about not winning, help them get better. You don't tell them, oh, well, you came in fifth last time, so third should be enough for you. Get out there, get outside, get in a tank top, go for a run with them. It shouldn't be a crime to want to do better. It shouldn't be a crime to want to do your best. And I think the framing from national media of Knicks fans as ungrateful zealots for wanting their team to do the best that it can is a disservice to the fans who are ultimately responsible for the checks that those media members get, and is a disservice to the sport and the way it's covered. I understand media members thinking they know more than fans. They probably do, all in all, but deriding fans for not knowing as much as them and for not reaching the same conclusions as them when literally all the fans are doing is, get this, being fans, is crazy. Because like if fans were like, hey, you're an idiot, you suck, and here's why, and also this coach sucks and here's why, I could get them being like, you don't know what you're talking about, whatever. Why are we making fun of fans who want their team to do better? I don't know. Little asinine to me, little nonsensical. um yeah, I feel like, you know, again, like if your kid comes in third place in a race and they're upset about it and they want to do better, do you tell them, well, you came in fifth and sixth the last couple times, you should be glad you did better and not want to do better? Or like should you help your kid do better? I don't know. I guess that's the way I'd put it. Brian, thanks for answering my question. Matt, I got to that. Lil Chris Punch. Austin Rivers had some moments, man. Hell yeah. He was a random hero versus the Jazz. Yeah, he was. Jay, name to watch out for. Do you think we trade anyone in the starting five? Shout out to Lil Chris Punch, by the way. Those are some funny comments, man. Name to watch out for. Right now, the only one I've gotten is Johnny Bryant. I think it's honestly gotten to the point where like a lot of the fans that are online probably expect it to be Bryant only because that's the only name that anyone out there has heard. I just think it's that people haven't been able or haven't had time to hear other names. Like I think there's something to waiting a couple days, but I know people want answers now. That's why we're here right now. And I do think that they'll look into some different college coaches. Apparently, that's something they're going to do. You don't make a move like this if you don't have a plan, but you shouldn't confuse that with you don't make a move like this unless you have your replacement. Like it's okay to do a search and make sure you hire someone you're comfortable with. Zach says, if I remember correctly, I believe the Knicks could have drafted Jalen Williams, but had to attach that pick along with Burks and Noel to free up cap space, which eventually became Jalen. Nah, they traded the pick for 3 first-round picks from Oklahoma City. And they also traded Burks and Noel to Detroit to free up cap space, which became Brunson. There was a way that they could have wound up with Brunson and also Jalen Williams, but it's not anything that like anyone on Twitter or any media member or anything would have signed. It was like a whole bunch of cap gymnastics. I think they pretty much did it like with the McHale trade when they got someone to come back from overseas to. So yeah, it was possible, but not like realistically. I think it was literally possible, but not like feasibly. Brian, I'll ask a follow-up if I may. Would Thibodeau accept the role as an assistant coach? Wouldn't that be a demotion? He hasn't been a number 2 since he was with the Celtics. He's had 3 head coaching jobs since. I don't know if he would. If I were him, I would be looking for a head coaching job first. He deserves one. The thing is, not every coach that deserves a job gets one. Sometimes it comes down to opportunity and connections and things out of their control. So he should try to get a head coaching job. If he can't, he has to wonder to himself if he'd rather stay on the bench and be a number 2, or if he would rather be in a front office with a, get to pick kind of his location. Like, would he want to just stay in New York? I don't know what he would choose because I don't know the guy personally. But it's a good question. If Thibs wants to coach but not be an assistant, what's left for him? Few openings in the NBA. Yeah, I don't know. I guess front office, right? I guess that's it. Look, Chris Punch says, whoa, college coaches? Yeah, apparently, man. Apparently, that's what they're gonna look into it. Doesn't mean they'll hire one. Doesn't mean any of the finalists for the gig will be a college coach, but I do think that there's something to the fact that they're willing to look into it. Again, I don't know exactly who they'd be looking at, and I don't want to just say because I'm afraid to start speculation about like people's jobs that I don't actually know anything about. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I saw someone say there is an interest around the league in Jenkins. Interesting. I guess I get it. Little Chris Punch, feel like Mike Brown could kind of fit into that Tibbs mold with his whole thing with Keon Ellis. Without getting too deep into like Kings lore, I will say that I really don't blame Mike Brown for the Keon Ellis thing. That was one of several missteps by that franchise that happened in the midst of and as a result of a whole lot of shenanigans that I think some of them being out of Brown's control. Nemo, not sure about the kid analogy. LOL. All right. I mean, first of all, I get it. My analogies are usually ridiculous. Second of all, here's what I was trying to get across. Just because things weren't great before for something doesn't mean that once they get better, it's bad to want them to get more betterer. Zach, national media refuses to acknowledge that sometimes process is better than results. That's what this whole conversation comes down to. Yeah. And I also think there's something to like the national media going back and forth between which one matters more. Like, they didn't care about the results during the regular season because despite the fact that no one was getting injured, because they disagreed with the process, they were like, oh, this is going to go bad and this is a bad move. But then the results were good. So then they were like, oh, well, this is going to end up going bad. So it's still a bad move. And then the Knicks deliver postseason results. They make it to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years. And then they move on from their head coach because they didn't love his process while delivering those results. And now all of a sudden the national media is like, oh, look at the results. How do you fire the guy? It's like, what? If you are not Claire DeLune, who literally spent her valuable time this season, like using data to prove that Tom Thibodeau does not get his players injured, I do not want to hear your now magical sympathies for Tibbs getting fired. Like, if you were trashing him during the year I don't want you telling me now how sad it is that he's fired. Shut up. Like someone like Claire who put together that brilliant article that I actually interviewed her about on this show. You can go watch it. Geez, you can go watch it on YouTube. Um, like if she was like, okay, I think Tibbs didn't get a fair shake, I'd get it. But like the rest of the media gave Tibbs the unfair shake and is now like, whoa, he didn't even get a fair shake. What do you mean you don't like Subway? You made the sandwich. Like, what are we doing? Um, today. Sarcastic robot. Is there any potential name that's crossed your mind that you think would be a disaster? Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, let me just talk crap about someone. No, no, there's no name that's crossed my mind that I think would be a disaster. I think I think it would be silly to hire Mike Malone because why are you moving on from Tom Thibodeau to hire Mike Malone? Just keep Tom Thibodeau or like keep Thibodeau and hire an offensive coordinator, like I was going to suggest. By the way, how crazy is it that my wonderful editors at clutchpoints.com approved early this morning my article idea for the case for the Knicks keeping Tom Thibodeau, but adding someone like Terry Stotts as offensive coordinator. I got up. I was going to start the article. I realized from working overnights recently that I was just exhausted. Went back to sleep instead of starting the article. Figured, I'd have all evening to start the article. Wake up. Thibodeau was fired like an hour and a half before I woke up. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. So sorry, Jason, but I'm going to be pitching you another article soon, man. My last two ideas for pieces have kind of been snatched out of my hands. One because I was like half joking, but like not really. Like I had an idea for an article, and Schwinn with the Strickland said it like everything I was going to try and say, but he said it like in one Twitter thread, and it was really smartly said. And I was like, damn it, all right. And now I was going to write an article about keeping Thibodeau, and before I even got to write a single word or decide a headline or anything, well, a little late to defend him. So yeah, I guess that should say something though. Like I did feel like there was something to keeping Thibodeau even after this season, but it just seems like the front office, from their perspective, felt like it was time to move on. I think it's important now, especially that Shams is with ESPN, and to the extent that he is, to really pay attention to his phrasing when he reports things. Um, you know, the Knicks are singularly focused on their pursuit of a championship and believe a new voice will serve as the focus for the organization's next step. So, what the hell does that actually mean? The Knicks are singularly focused on their pursuit of a championship. Duh. That feels like veiled, sassy language talking about the media members that thought Rose wouldn't fire Thibodeau because they were personally connected. What can we actually take from this tweet? To me, they believe a new voice will serve as the focus for the organization's next step. That's what we can take from. So let me write that down for you. Sharanya, Knicks believe a new voice will serve as the focus for the org's step. All right. There you go. There you go. So yeah, I'm my own producer, so you have to watch me type in the headlines for the ticker, but sorry. Anyway, basically, I think what this means is the Knicks do think that the roster they assembled is worth a damn. They did think once Mitchell Robinson was healthy that they had given Tom Thibodeau a sufficient amount of pieces to work with to go out and make some noise. I reported around the trade deadline that I was not confident that the Knicks believed that this season was part of their championship window. I can tell you, I can tell you coming into this season that the Knicks were not confident that their window was even open yet. I think by the time they got Robinson back, they realized that it could potentially be a little more open than they thought. And I think once they won those first 2 games in Boston, they were like, "Oh crap, this thing just got flung wide open." Um, they get to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Indiana Pacers. It obviously does not go well for them because they lost the series. But I think the fact that they made a lineup change that they suggested to their coach that he make the round before, and then think about it. Before the lineup change, the Knicks were 0 and 2. After the lineup change, the Knicks were 2 and 2. So like, you know, what if they had started 2 and 2? What if they had still lost games 2 and 4, but they didn't drop game 1 because they never started game 1 in a 10-point hole because they didn't start game 1 with the starting lineup that had been bad all season. Because then if they didn't start in a 10-point hole, then the Pacers digging themselves out of a 14-point hole would have still left the Knicks up 10. All of a sudden, when you need that many threes, it's a little harder for Aaron Nesmith to just go up the court and make every single one. The pressure is greater. But with each three he made in, I was almost more sure that the next one was going to go in as well. I wasn't expecting it to regress to the mean. I think the guy was hot. That's how that works. You enter this state of self-belief that supersedes any nerves or doubt in your ability. And I just genuinely felt every time like he shot one of those threes, it was going to go in. And the team just kept not defending screens, kept not switching. With 2 were on Anunoby, 1 was on Hart, 1 was on Brunson. Timeout Knicks. He makes 2 more in the quarter. He goes 8 for 9 for the game. Without a freak game like that, the Knicks probably start out 2-2 against the Pacers. Then it's a best out of 3 with 2 of those 3 games coming at Madison Square Garden. It's a much different situation than down 3-1. But that's not what happened. And the Knicks apparently feel like a different coach may not have won the championship, but they would not have lost because of an unwillingness to try new things and depart from the principles that are the foundation of their coaching ethos. So I think that's a huge, huge part of this all. When it comes to whoever they hire next and how that will change, like I said earlier, I don't think they're looking to hire a pure lawyer who's just going to come in, do everything the analytics department tells them to, and defend it to the media like it was their idea. I don't think the Knicks want that at all. I do feel like the Knicks want a head coach that can bring some of the positives that Tom Thibodeau did: preparation, attention to detail. I don't know if you guys saw Ed Cohen, his tweet today. Ed is the former, and really, it's sad that he had a voice problem when he did, because he was such a great radio announcer for the Knicks. But Ed Cohen, the former radio announcer for the Knicks, tweeted today that Tom Thibodeau would have it so that the bus rides to games were silent. And also I should say Tyler Murray is like really freaking good, by the way, and is such a nice guy, but he's really, really good at what he does. I know being a broadcaster and then having like a career altering illness is as close as anyone's going to get to like a career ending injury in the NBA. Like, it's just, that has to be soul crushing. That doesn't make you feel great about anything. But all in all, like, Knicks radios is good. Regardless, Tibbs had the bus silent on the way to games. And basically, like, well, he had the guys locked the hell in. He had the guys locked the hell in. And I think that's awesome. I think that like Friday Night Lights, right? Like, I think that's awesome. Knick fans should be really grateful for Tom Thibodeau. I just also think they shouldn't have it shoved in their faces by national media that they owe everything to Tom Thibodeau, and it's a complete joke that he was fired. Like, these are the same people who were getting on the radio and saying all year that the Knicks needed to be better, or needed to play their guys less minutes or something. Like, I don't know. Little silly to me. But other than that, your questions, your comments, your concerns, your complaints, even, go ahead, drop them in the comments. Because other than that, I feel like I'm about ready to wrap this thing up. Obviously, we'll talk about this further. You'll hear things when I can share them about the Knicks coaching search. All I've heard so far, they're supposed to be looking into some coaches at the college level, making sure they're doing a complete search, making sure that they're giving themselves the best chance to make the best hire. And Johnny Bryant is supposed to be a name in the mix there. He has a history with the organization, served as the associate head coach under Thibodeau. He was in Rick Brunson's role before Rick Brunson was in Rick Brunson's role. The role is seemingly to be the both the angel and the devil on Tibbs' shoulder, to remind him of his options, to advise him, to help him try and make the best decisions he can for the franchise. It seems to me, at least from reading body language from press row of the Knicks bench, that Bryant and now Brunson are the assistants on the staff with the most influence with regard to substitutions and rotations. It seems to me that those assistants are the kind of assistants that kind of got phased out over the years. Bryant, Woodson, Payne, and whether they were phased out. Well, phased out sounds like the team got rid of them. The team didn't get rid of any of them. They got hired away. But as they got hired away, it felt like the Knicks had an increasing amount of communication problems. And maybe that comes from people better understand things when people argue about them. Like, if I don't know, I'm trying to think of a way to put this. Like, you're sitting in class and the teacher explains something and they say, anyone have any questions? And no one says anything. Well, okay, you better have gotten what they said. But if someone says something and then someone else tells it to you, a different teacher, there's a second teacher in the room and they put it a different way, and you think that the two ways conflict, asking the teachers, oh, these conflict, and they explain to you why they don't conflict. Like, now you just learned something new about things. Now you just understood it from a different angle. So maybe there was some sort of that going on, where as the Knicks continued to get brain drained, to no fault of Tom Thibodeau's or Leon Rose's or the players or the staff or the MSG's, concessions people, like anyone in between, no fault of anyone with the Knicks. Maybe those communication issues arose with the team over time, as some of the assistants that were most adept at relating concepts to players and relating concepts to players and developing relationships with those players got hired away from their team because they did such a good job that they went to other teams. Maybe that's part of it too. You know, I think that maybe there's something there. But yeah, other than that, it doesn't seem like you guys have any final comments or questions. So you'll have like 30 seconds to leave them as I wrap up here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I have never done a live stream before that has gotten over 1,400 people watching it at once. That's crazy to me. I appreciate you all a lot, to an extent where I'm kind of awkwardly meandering through thanking you because I can't process how many of you there are, but thank you. And if you have any complaints or criticisms about the live stream, please, my DMs are open on Twitter. Please send them, because I want to do streams like this all summer with you guys. And I want to make sure you guys are getting what you want out of these streams. So if there's something you don't like, please let me know. I'm not saying I'm going to like change how I dress for you guys or whatever, but if 18 people reach out to me being like, God damn, you look fat in that sweater, but yeah, I'll probably change. So let me know. But maybe keep it basketball. I know I'm not a looker. All right. Listen, I do think it's time to go. It's time to wrap up. Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all greatly. Go follow my coverage at clutchpoints.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Chris Persianen. If you're watching on YouTube, go pump that into twitter.com/that. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure you follow the All Things NBA from A to Z podcast presented by Ball is Life. Because we're doing live streams like this all the time. So appreciate you. Nemo says, see you all. Yes, Nemo, be good. Appreciate you popping out. Thanks for your comments, and thanks for your input and your perspective. I always appreciate everyone that doesn't comment, but I always appreciate everyone that does comment because it kind of allows me to get a sense of what some of you guys are thinking about how the show's going. I'm a very anxious person, if you can't tell. I'm always just trying to do the best show possible for you guys, and sometimes that results in me freaking out a little bit. I've got to relax. Any hoodle. Other than that, thank you guys so much. I hope you all enjoyed this show. Let me know if you did or didn't. If you didn't, why. You get the point. Yeah, really appreciate you all for coming out. We'll see what the Knicks do. So, here we got a report. Hold on. Last second report. Here we go. Ian Begley, no, Tom Thibodeau will not have a role in the current Knicks front office. He is owed more than $30 million on his current extension, more on the Leon Rose-led decision to fire Tom Thibodeau here. This article came out like an hour ago. Knicks couldn't get over the hump. Begley had previously reported Thibodeau had been on shaky ground. Owner James Dolan was at meetings with select players where they assessed the season. The ultimate decision on Thibodeau was made by Rose and supported by Dolan. So that's the phrasing for me and Begley. Now I'll end the stream because that's the only news we're going to get today. But yeah, appreciate y'all a ton. Thanks for coming out. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon. Let's go Mets. Peace out. Have a good one. Can't wait to keep talking hoops with y'all.